Welcome back to another episode of The Art of Unraveling. I am always in love doing these interviews with people because it's so fun to I just feel like I pick up more things every time I interview someone. So I just love doing these interviews. And today I have Jessica. Say your last name because I just drew a blank.
That's okay. Thomas, Jessica Thomas.
Thomas. There we go. I know there's a C word there too. So that's where I
Yes.
went. Ah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
those of you that know me, I am such a first name basis. I half the time don't even know people's last names. So anyway, that was a little mind freeze there for a second. But I am so excited to have Jessica Thomas here today. We met, I think it's been several years ago. You came to one of
hmm
my Kundalini classes at Tula
Yeah.
Yoga in Cedar Rapids.
Yep.
And we've just kind of stayed connected. And then Jessica came to Ireland last September in
hmm
2022. So yeah, we just want to talk today with her. She's been doing a lot of unraveling in her own life and talk a little bit about her experience on retreat and just all the things. Jessica,
hmm
anything else you want to share about an introduction about yourself?
Yeah. I think that's right. We met. I kind of forgot about the Kundalini class. So
It's
yeah,
a
we met at the
long time
Kundalini
ago.
class. I know, a long time ago. I feel like I did my Reiki training with you as well. So it's kind of just been this slow journey that we've, been on together. And
Yeah.
then signed up for your newsletter. And I remember getting the email about the Ireland retreat and reading through the description of that. And I was like, no, this does not sound like, I know, right? This does not sound like anything. I'm sure that's not what you want to hear. But like, this does not sound like anything that I would want to do. And then I was like, why am I feeling that way? Why do I have
Mhm.
such resistance to like this go with the flow and kind of an adventurous type retreat? And I was like, what, why do I have such a resistance to that? And I think for me, the unraveling part is, for a long time, I lived in my masculine space, like the to-do list, the obsessive, just having to have everything right. Um, and so kind of surrendering to that flow was foreign to me for a long time. And so I was like, okay, maybe I do need this, right? So then I think I reached out to you and I'm like, yeah, I'm in. I'm going to do this. I'm scared to death, but I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
And
yeah.
I think that
And I
was
think
that kind of your first retreat, or had you
it,
done?
it was my second retreat, but my first retreat was very scheduled, very
Mm,
regimented. Everything was like mapped out, hour by hour, really, minute by minute. And so for me, I was like, okay, I like that. But then I also, when I was on that retreat, I liked that free time where I could just do my own thing. And so I think that's where I was like, no, I know, oops, lost my earring. I was like, oops. Um, Yeah, I liked that. And so, but it was also scary to me. It was scary because it's unknown, and
yes.
I like to historically like to control everything, which we can't do that. But yeah, in my mind, I like to control things.
Jessica, I'm so with you. I'm still I've been unraveling that more in my life too. The
Yeah.
control thing.
hmm
I was just having a talk with somebody yesterday, and a lot of people on here know I know a bit about my story, but growing up with an alcoholic,
hmm
I have a friend that's and not saying that you grew up with an alcoholic. I don't know that
Right.
for
Right.
you, but um addiction and alcoholism, whether you have it yourself or you grew up with it, can
hmm
lead to extreme need for control. It's just like a safety thing. And so, yeah,
hmm
I'm still working through that one myself. So I feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Um,
for me, it's just for me, it's being an empath and
yeah.
having big emotions. for me, having that control of like trying to control everything was a way for me to control my emotions because I was afraid of the big emotions. And
Mm, yeah,
yeah, and for me, part of that journey too of unraveling the empathic part of me is it does definitely stem from childhood. I think for me it was like and I'm not saying I had a tumultuous childhood or anything like this, but maybe I had such big emotions that my parents didn't know how to deal with those emotions. So then in turn it
so
was you need
very
to go to
common.
your right, you need to go to your room until you can calm down, or you need, you know, you have to go away from me until you can come back here with your calm self. I didn't know how to calm myself, you know, and so those
Yeah,
just emotions just kept bubbling and bubbling and bubbling. So then, you know, as I grew into an adult, a lot of those things I just would shove down because I was afraid to show emotion because in my mind, in a child's mind, it was like that's not acceptable, right? Yeah.
totally. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
touching on so many great points. Um, yeah, I feel like this is a good little area to be in. So let's ride this just a little bit longer if that's okay.
Yeah,
Like
no problem.
I remember in Ireland, I remember your words were surrender and flow. Like that was your
Hmm.
intention.
Yeah.
That just popped into my head just now.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think so many people like that's probably a common issue. I mean, I've heard that from other people. Like, what do you mean?
Hmm.
I have free I remember somebody that came on our one of our local retreats and she's like, and it was just a couple hours of free time. And she's like, what do you mean? We have 2 hours where there's nothing scheduled. And I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah. And she just was so uncomfortable with that free time in there.
Hmm.
So I think that's like a real thing for people that we
Yeah.
can't just be. And
Mm.
it is
Yeah.
that, like you said, the imbalance of the feminine and the masculine. How else have you seen that show up for you?
Yeah, I mean, you know a little bit about my story. I am a big proponent of therapy, whether it just be traditional therapy, somatic therapy, you know, energy therapy, any of those things. Like, I think you have to have a multitude of things in your toolbox
Yeah.
for these times where you're triggered or whatever. But I do remember my therapist just saying, Jessica, don't you know how to just be? And I was like, oh, I don't. I don't. But I think that's also the world that we live in right now. We're so connected, we're so overstimulated, we're so overscheduled that if I was living in a space where if I didn't have a schedule, if I didn't have my calendar, if I didn't know what was coming next, it was scary to me, you know? So just sitting and not having a plan was terrifying, you know? So I resonate with, you know, that other retreat member. It's like, what do I do? Like, and
Yeah.
then you have to sit maybe with some of your own thoughts and your own feelings. And so that's in part scary too, because then it's like, if I'm still, if I'm not running, if I'm not numbing, if I'm not um, tuning out, I'm not tuning in. And so
Mm.
tuning in is scary too. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a big reason we do get in that busy mode is to
Yeah.
not deal with our own thoughts and feelings for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So I love that despite you seeing the retreat and going,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want to do that.
I know. Sorry to tell you that. But
No. And
no,
I'm like, I don't know that you told me that before,
I
but maybe,
didn't.
hey, I welcome all feedback.
Yeah.
um, what so you had that reaction and
Mhm.
then what made you decide to do that? Because that takes courage to go
Mhm.
against the fear of like, oh, this feels really scary. I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Right.
I mean, that's kind
Yeah.
of a big jump. What made you get
It is
there?
I think it is a big jump, but I just remember hearing the phrase where we resist, it persists. And so I was like, if I'm resisting this, what underlying is persisting for me? And it really was just surrender to that flow. I mean, that my mantra was surrender and flow. And I was like, I don't want to be in this hyper masculine. It didn't feel good. You know, I didn't feel, I felt tired. I felt worn out. I felt frazzled. I felt short tempered. Like, and as a woman, you know, I'm primarily, I mean, we have a balance of masculine and feminine, but I do thrive. And I discovered that, you know, on that trip, that I do thrive when I'm more in that surrender and flow spirit. And I didn't know that I needed to be in that space more until, you know, I went there with you, and I was like, oh my goodness, it was kind of like an aha moment. Like, I love this. Like, I did. I was just like, I love this. I love, you know, with one of the other retreat members, it's like, should we wake up early tomorrow morning before the sunrise and walk down to the ocean and sit there and watch the sunrise and eat blackberries off the wild bushes along the path? You know, it was like, yes, because that
Yeah.
was so soul filling for me. But I would have, had I planned it, it wouldn't have gone that way. It was just like a whim. Let's wake up early tomorrow and do it, you know? And so,
That's where the
yeah,
magic happens. The magic
it
happens
does.
in the flow. It doesn't happen in
Yep.
the structure. We
It
need the
doesn't
structure
happen.
too,
Yep.
but that's where the balance comes in, and we're always going to be balancing the two. There's never going to be a perfect
Right.
balance. You know, you're
Yep.
just always this kind of teeter-totter of like figuring
Yeah.
out. But yeah, the magic happens in the
Hmm.
flow for sure.
Yeah.
And just so everybody who's listening knows, like there is some structure to my
Oh,
retreats.
yeah.
We do have
There
some plan,
totally is. Yes. Yep.
but it's like you got to be flexible. And I say
Hmm.
that because I've done other retreats in the past where I've had people like you, Jess, or like your old self, that were
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, you said we were going to be here at 2 o'clock and it's
Yep.
3, you know, and when you're in a group, it's just like, you can't control everything.
Right.
One person, I can call her out, Natalie, you know, takes a long time to get back to the bus. Like there's
She's
no,
living in her flow. She's living in
she
her
was in
flow.
her flow. She was in her flow.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do, I loved that part of, you know, there was a lot of structured things to do, but it was just that in between. And part of it was we traveled to different areas too. That had never been a place where I had been, where, you know, normally when I travel somewhere, I get there and I stay, you know, I don't leave. And so that was scary for me too, where, um, I had never done that before. And I was like, this is amazing too, you know, because you're just exploring, you know. And so, I mean, you had an itinerary set up, but it was just like, we're leaving at this time, but it might be 5 minutes later than that, you know, and just letting that go, letting go of looking at your clock and the calendar and the schedule. Those were things that, you know, it wasn't presented that there was just no structure. It was just that, yeah, you know, we might leave a little bit later and we might, you know, veer off and look at, you know, this sacred site because it's on the way and our driver says it's amazing, you know. So it was just
Right.
so many of those magical moments that happened, you know. Even I think back to when we were in one of the stone circles and it was raining, you know, it's Ireland, but it's raining. And I think you took the picture of me and I was like, I'm going to lay in the middle of this thing and just let the rain fall on me, because it's, but the old me would have been like, no, I mean, I need to be, you know, hunkered down in the bus and I don't want to get wet. But I'm like, yeah, I'm here soaking it up. Like, it was
Yes.
amazing.
I
Yeah.
remember
Amazing.
that. Yeah,
Yeah. I think you sent the
I did
picture
take
to
a
me and I'm like,
picture.
oh,
I was
yeah.
like, she's in her flow. She's
Yeah.
well, and like I did that too at Newgrange, and the old me
Yes.
would have been like, you look weird. People are gonna look at you funny.
Right.
And it's just something told me just lay down on the earth and get all
Yeah.
that good energy.
Yep.
So yeah, that's like there's so much freedom in that. And I think there's
Hmm.
so much freedom when you can be in your flow to a certain, you know,
Hmm.
to a certain extent. Like obviously we can't live every day just,
Right.
you know, flowing, but it
Yep.
would be so cool if we could.
It would be so cool. But it's, again, it's that, I don't think they're ever, like you said, balance, but it's how do you create harmony within,
Yeah,
you know,
that's a good
structure
word.
and flow. Yeah. Yeah. Because there needs to be both, but there definitely needs to be a harmony, you know, because you're, you know, yeah, there's never balance. There's
No.
never balance.
Yeah, I just tell people, if you have spent all day in your masculine at work, can you come home and just like cook a slow meal or
Yeah.
play with your kids, like
Mhm.
unplanned, or something
Yep.
that's like not a structure.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
that's bringing pleasure. Now I'm going to kind of go on another little pathway here, but that's bringing more
Okay.
pleasure to life. Otherwise, we're just
Mhm.
robotically going through the motions.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And I think you and I touched before we started recording about like somatic work too, even for me, just moving my body, I didn't realize like how much I needed that. I didn't realize like how much knowledge my body was carrying, but I wasn't tapping into it either. So like that somatic work that I've done with you too is just, it's just our bodies can tell us so much.
Oh my
They
gosh.
really can. And I mean, I wish I would have known this 20 years ago, right? Or even in
Same.
my teenage years, I'm raising teenage girls right now. And it's like these are the things that I've learned along the way that now I'm implementing into their lives that I can hope to be an example for them and then generations to come, how to kind of tap into our own inner wisdom too. And
Yeah.
again, creating balance, creating that flow. I mean, you have to have structure. We all, most of us thrive better when we have a little routine, but it's just those moments of like you said, pleasure of just the unknown. Yeah. The sweetness of life. Yeah.
Yeah, turning off the pressure valve and
Yeah.
valve and turning on the pleasure valve. Because it's
Yeah.
like you can cook a meal. I don't know why I keep going back to that example. You can cook a
Mhm.
meal, like throw the ingredients together really quick, hurry up and make it, serve it. And
Right.
some nights we have to do that for our
Yep.
family. But you can also like cook a meal where you're like tasting it as you go
Hmm.
and like
Yeah.
savoring that and
Yep.
just adding in just those. It doesn't have to take an hour. It's like adding in
Hmm.
just those little moments of like being with what is in the moment.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I just
Being
I love
present.
being present.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's what
Yep.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love where this conversation is flowing because this is
Hmm.
like what I love to talk about right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like we have to do this, otherwise life gets really monotonous and
Hmm.
we wonder why we're stressed out and like you said
Hmm.
overwhelmed and exhausted. We're
Yeah.
not bringing that magic to life on a daily
Hmm.
basis. Sprinkling it in.
Sprinkling again. And I like how you kept coming back to cooking too, because I think as a society, we think magic has to be these big, grand gestures.
Right.
But I mean, in my own self study, it's like I love just sitting and I'm looking at it now at my window, but I love looking at the trees. Like I love watching the breeze through the leaves. And it's like, I mean, that brings me so much pleasure. It does. But I wouldn't have known that unless I had slowed down and tuned into that. And I think giving myself the permission to do that, that's definitely was a learning curve for me too. That I don't have to be going, 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 doing all the time either. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one to unravel. So do you feel like the Ireland retreat kind of was the start of that for you? And like what's been your experience after the retreat? I know you've went on some other retreats as well, but
Yeah.
like tell us about how you are now versus pre-Ireland Jessica.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, well, obviously pre-Ireland, Jessica was like, no, I need schedule, I need routine, I need everything mapped out. And I didn't take the time for those small moments. And that's hard to say even as a parent, because I feel like if we don't tune in and slow down, we're missing so much sweetness. I keep coming back to that word. I don't know why it keeps coming up, but the sweetness of life is those small moments. It really is. It's
It
just,
so is. And
yeah.
I think about that, not to sorry to interrupt you, but
No, you're fine.
I've been feeling that a lot lately because I'm getting ready to move across
Yeah.
the country. And there's all these extra things to do. And so I find myself really getting busy, but in really in my head and thinking about the to-do list. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I want to be savoring these moments that I have in this house and in
Right.
this place. So I feel you on that because
Hmm.
that's really coming up for me right now.
Yeah.
And the moments just go by and it's like, I'm not going to be able to be back here. Just like, whatever age your kids are right now, like in a year from now, they're not going to be, so it's like, it's so
Right.
important, as you said, to savor these moments, keep going.
Yeah. And like, I think part of it is just, again, it's slowing down,
Yeah.
definitely. Eh, and, you're talking about your move too. I found in my own practice, you've heard of the Eckhart Tolle book, Power of Now. It's like when I start feeling all of those feelings of frantic and nervousness and fear and anxiety, it's because I'm projecting into the future. I'm thinking about the past. I'm like, all we have is right now, so right now in this moment, I'm talking to you, and
Yeah.
it used to be so hard for me to sit here and focus on just right now without having my to-do list running through my head. So the before Jessica, before Ireland, definitely was like not present. And I think that has just been um, just just a great phenomenal thing for me in my own life, not only with just myself, being present with myself, but being present with my children. It's like put the phone down, check it at the door. Even before I come in my own house after the end of a work day, it's like I just need to take 5 minutes, get rid of all the stuff I'm carrying around from the day that's either mine or not mine, and then just be present as soon as I walk in the door. But
Mhm.
I didn't know that before, and I was carrying around stuff from my day and I was reacting in a way that just it wasn't me. It didn't feel like me. And so I think that has just been a huge journey for me as well. It's just, again, savoring those small moments so I can be present. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, there is, at least in my case, there's been a level of pain that's come up with that because I
Mm-hmm.
look back and I'm like, wow, I don't remember a lot of things, like
Mm-hmm.
I think partly that's just how my brain works. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like if you're not present, you're not remembering things. Or I think
Mm-hmm.
too, like a lot of people get really, and I used to do this a lot, um, you'd have like a really good day or something to look forward to, like a concert or a retreat or something. And so there's all this anticipation and kind of this forward thinking. And
Mm-hmm.
then it comes and then it's over. And then it's like, now what, And
Right.
so, yeah, again, it just comes back to like what you're saying, the sweetness of the moment, being
Mm-hmm.
here now, and yeah, savoring the moment as
Mm-hmm.
much as you can. Because every day there's magic. We just have to
Yeah.
look.
Every day there's magic.
And that was a big Ireland thing too, because
Yeah.
Ireland's all about the fairies.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about magic in Ireland,
Mm-hmm.
and I
We
think
did.
it's a good place to cultivate just that everyday magic. Even if you're not in Ireland, there's
Mm-hmm.
still magic.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's in everyday moments and how you can turn off that outside noise and just tune into that everyday magic. Yeah. And a lot of times, it reminds me again, it goes back to that right now, we this reminds me of something. I went to an Abraham Hicks conference. I got the pleasure of doing that this summer. And she just talked about like we're meant for joy, we're meant for love, we're meant for anything other than that. Fear, anxiety, any of those things, they're not real, they're illusions, right? And
Yeah.
so tuning into why am I feeling this way? Why am I fearful? Why am I anxious? And what can I do to get myself back to center to feel joy? And that's been a huge aha moment for me too. It's like, okay, maybe it's something simple like I'm tired. I need a nap. I
Right.
need a 15-minute power nap. I'm hungry. I need some food, right? I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes we forget about our basic needs to just get us back to kind of that stability and then it's like, okay, now what's going on underneath all of that I can address. But sometimes it's
Right.
just as simple as like, I'm tired and hungry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like kids cry when they're hungry or
I
tired. Like,
know.
I get it because it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
but I mean, we're babies and that's our
yeah,
parents knew that, right? There's like feed them, change them, give them a nap. And it's like we forget as adults, we still need those basic needs.
you
And
still
that
have
might
to
be
do
why I'm feeling, yeah, feeling so anxious, tired, whatever the feeling is, and again, not present. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't always have to be, everybody knows that listens to this podcast that I like to talk a lot about trauma and that kind of thing, but
Hmm.
we don't always have to go fixing something. Like,
Right.
yes, sometimes there is a deeper unmet need under there, or,
Yep.
something from a wound from childhood that's come up. Yes, that can happen, but it's also, yeah, sometimes you're just really tired. And your
Hmm.
body, I read this recently. They said, treat your body like it's a baby,
Yeah.
because it has like the body has needs,
Hmm.
food, water, sleep. So you just have to treat it like it's a baby and not be
Hmm.
upset by it. Just take care of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Just take care of it. That's hard to do in a busy world too. So
Yes, it is. It is.
yeah.
Ah, this is so fun, Jess.
Yeah.
Earlier I just wrote something down that I'm looking at. Earlier you said, I don't remember the context was when you were talking about growing up with your parents and having these big emotions,
Hmm.
and not knowing, and like them telling you go to your room
Hmm.
and not knowing how to calm yourself down. I'm curious what you do now, or what you've
Sure.
learned to do to, because we have a lot of impacts that
Oh
listen.
yeah. Yeah.
So what have you learned? What works for you in terms of, what I would call getting back to a regulated nervous system,
Hmm.
calming yourself, self-regulation, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I feel like I had mentioned earlier, like the toolbox. Like I feel um I have multiple things that I do. And it's not one size fits all for every situation, but for me, definitely just tuning into my breath. I mean, I feel like that is just the number one thing, because I'm like, okay, I'm feeling everything up here. I'm feeling everything in my shoulders. I'm feeling like so tight, so anxious, whatever. And it's like, am I breathing? No, I'm not. I'm breathing in my chest. I'm not breathing in my belly. So it's like, all right, hand on heart, hand on belly, just tuning in. And it's just for me, three big breaths. It really just takes me back to center. Definitely movement. Movement for me is another huge one. Again, it doesn't have to be, I think when we're going through this journey, we think we have to do all these big things and they all have to be in order and you have to take so
Yeah.
much time, but it doesn't really
Five
have to
hours
be.
later, it's
I
time
know,
for
5 hours
bed.
later, I'm feeling regulated. But sometimes for me, it's just like throwing on a good jam and dancing it out, like just
Yes.
wild, shaking it out. And again, going back to our Ireland retreat, I just remember, after Shavasana, you're like, I feel like we should just like run towards, we're by the sleeping giant. You're like, I just want to run towards the ocean and scream and like, yeah. So sometimes it's just like, maybe I need to go out in my backyard and scream. And I don't care if my neighbors think I'm crazy. My yard. I'm gonna scream like a crazy woman over here. Um, but yeah, I think there's been a lot of different things for me. Quieting my mind, uh, definitely with meditation has been probably the number one thing that
Yeah.
I can say that has helped me is meditation. And I'm not perfect at it. My mind definitely wanders, but just having that compassion and grace for myself, knowing that we're imperfect and my meditation practice isn't going to be perfect and my yoga practice isn't going to be perfect and I'm going to mess up. But yeah, I think that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty, is that we're all imperfect. And yeah, yeah. I would say yoga, meditation, breath work, and then just shaking it out.
Yes. All my
Yeah.
top faves as well.
Yeah. So good. So good.
So good. Well, this has been awesome, Jess. Is there anything else you want to share? I mean, you kind of gave us some great tools there. Any last words you want to leave with anybody?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I just feel like for me, especially in my own journey, that I have a family, I have children, and what I realized is if I am not taking care of myself, I have nothing else to give to anyone else. And I was giving from an empty cup. And so um again, having children, there's that mom guilt, like I can't leave my kids, but they're fine. And in fact, it makes me a better mother because of it. And it doesn't you
Mm.
know, you don't have to be a mother in this space. It's just a better person in general. Like you need to fill your own cup first before you can give to others. And that has been a huge, huge blessing to me is taking that time because, you know, we have just this one beautiful life, you know, and we're meant to savor it. We're meant to enjoy it. We're meant to love ourselves well so we can then love others. So yeah, I would say take the time, take the trip.
Kidding.
Just do it. Yeah, life is short. Life is short. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
I still have yet to make the meme where it says, I really regretted that retreat, said nobody ever. Like,
Nobody ever.
no,
Like
you
not
just,
one time. Yeah. And
no,
again, it doesn't have to, you know, you talked about your day retreats. I'm like, it doesn't have to be these big, yeah.
right.
Yeah, just that moment in time is so important. Yeah.
Yeah. Filling up your cup,
Yeah.
getting away from the routine
Yeah.
day in, day out of life and coming back like just with new perspectives, new
Mhm.
energy, your cup filled up. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
invaluable.
Mhm. It's invaluable. And I feel like especially when retreats, there's community that's created too. I mean, we're a species meant for community. And so, you know, I feel like there's connection. I mean, I have two great connections I made with three. I mean, more than that. I mean, I feel like we're all Facebook friends too, you
Yeah.
know, and we still check in with each other. But I'm like, you know, it's been a year and we're like, how are you doing? You know, and just that's amazing too, that the friendships that can grow out of that and community that grows out of that. So thank you for that too, because I think it's
Oh,
so important to have, you know, just people to help build you up. Yeah.
like-minded community too, that you can feel
Yeah.
safe to share
Yes.
your truth in without being judged. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's so
that's so,
important. And we need that web of safety, right? And I feel like that's
yeah.
in those communities, especially in your retreats, that's what you've created. And so it's so much appreciated. Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
thank you, Jessica.
Yeah.
Well, it's a joy having you here. And just for everybody listening, we do have some spots left for the Pai Thailand retreat. It's in the northern mountains of Thailand. That's January 14th through the 21st. And then we also have, since we're talking about Ireland, we've got Ireland in August 2024, the 17th through the 24th, I think it is. But reach out to me if you want information on either of those. Jessica, thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing. I loved the conversation. Thanks for bringing it.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you everybody for listening. We'll see you next time.